Hello and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. Today we have Netflix 420th film from 2021. It's the Swedish romantic drama called JJ+E, or in Swedish it's Vinterviken. It's directed by Alexis Almstrom and stars Magnus Krepper, Marika, Lagercrantz, and Simon Mezher. I am Jesse. I am your host. Thank you for joining me today for this Netflix original film. If you haven't seen this film and you're interested in giving it a watch, checking it out before I spoil it for you in this episode, please pause now and come back a little bit later on, because we're going to get into this show with our Fast Flicks, where we do a quick little summary of what the film is all about. So this one is about a boy from the bad side of town who falls for a girl from the good side of town. But can they be together? There we go, question mark. It's been a while. I used to always like putting question marks in my Fast Flicks. JJ and E, are they going to end up together? And that's this gist of this story, I guess. Context, I guess, is JJ is the main male's name, John, and E is Elizabeth. So the title in English is both of their names together. On Netflix, the tagline for this one, it says, Elizabeth and John live in the same city, but they inhabit different worlds. Can a passionate first love break through class and cultural barriers? Question mark. There you go. Netflix have a question mark in their tagline too. The working title for this was Vinterviken 2021, and we'll get to that in a second, because there is another film with the same title. Around the world, the direct Swedish translation of Vinterviken is Winter Bay in English, and that's I guess where these two characters sort of how they end up meeting is through this bay. I haven't read the book which it's based on, which we'll talk about soon, but I'm guessing that's what it is. It's the same in German, Italian, Norwegian, Spanish, Polish, Russian, Chinese. In Korean, it's called Yon and Elizabeth, so they've directly translated it there. In Mandarin, it's Winter Bay Romance. In Arabic, it's John and Elizabeth. So there we go, all play on the same title. As I touched on, this is based on the book called Vinterviken by an author called Mats Wall, and I believe this is a set text in many Swedish schools. So it's one of those very culturally specific texts that would have a great connection with a lot of people over a long amount of time, a bit like, for example, To Kill a Mockingbird for an American audience. The director of the film, JJ+E, Alexis Almstrom, has said that the novel had an impact on him when he was in his teens, and that's why he's gone on to make this book, or this novel, was adapted previously in 1994 under the title Vinterviken, and it was translated into English as Winter Bay. So there we go. This is the second adaptation of the novel, so obviously a very meaningful text. This hit Netflix worldwide on the 8th of September 2021. It was filmed in and around Stockholm in Sweden. So there we go. It's nice to get around the world while covering this show. This at the Swedish Film Awards, the Guldbagge Awards, the film won Best Supporting Actor for Jonah Pineda Skakal, who played the character Sluggo. He's sort of the down-and-out character. It was also nominated for Best Supporting Actor, so the same category for Magnus Krepper for Frank, who is Elizabeth's father in this film, as well as Mustafa Arab, who plays John, nominated for Best Actor as well. So there we go. Very, very interesting there. Let's keep going. What are the critics and audiences saying about this film? So on Rotten Tomatoes, there is no critic consensus. There's only 3 reviews. 2 of those are fresh. One of them is rotten, so not a lot of data to go on there. The audience sits at 64%. That's on less than 50 ratings, though, so again, on that low end. And if we head over to IMDb, it's got 2,900 ratings, sits at a 5.4 out of 10, again on that low side. And Letterboxd, 2.7 out of 5 on nearly 20,000 ratings, and it's been logged by 25,000 people, so a few more there. There's nothing on Metacritic for this one, so not much data, but you'd say probably on the low end of being enjoyed, this film. But what are my early thoughts? I'm sure you're interested. My early thoughts for this one, I think, like it's a teen film that preaches the idea that you should be with whoever you want to be. It's anyone that you have a connection with, no matter what your social status tells you should do. I think it's well put together with some questionable choices throughout, but it worked for me. It was fine. I was into the film. I was interested to see where it was going to go. So Let's get into it. Let's talk about the characters. The characters in this film. There's not a lot. There's not a lot of character development, to be honest. It sets up polar opposites almost. So John is this migrant, you'd say, in this very Swedish city, and he lives on this poor side of town with his mum, who is struggling with her own love life. She's got this drug dealer of a boyfriend who is a bit abusive to John. John doesn't like him, and that's probably because John's a little bit of a pushover. So he has these ambitions or these goals that he wants to perform. He wants to be in theatre, and even though that's against the stereotype of what his friends would like or consider a good career choice, he's still going through with this, and he doesn't have the money to attend high school, so he's got to depend on trials and scholarships and things like that. Where, as the complete opposite, his love interest Elizabeth, she's struggling herself. She's struggling with the death or the passing of her mother, and I think her father's inability to father, and the father, Frank, chooses work over her and her younger sister Patricia, and I think she falls a little bit for John for the intrigue he brings and the difference and the nice things that he's able to show through his character as well. Sluggo is the gangster friend of John, who sort of involves himself in crimes and drugs and breaking and entering, and pushes John to make some really poor decisions that probably are a little bit out of character for him. This Sluggo guy is a little bit of a jealous and controlling type who threatens his girlfriend's ex-partner multiple times, and I don't want to give away too much more, but I'll leave it at that. Patricia, I touched on. Patricia is Elizabeth's younger sister, so she enables the chance meeting between Elizabeth and John when Patricia jumps off a cliff and nearly drowns, and John saves her, and this allows John and Elizabeth to meet. So that's sort of the character she is, and I guess she gets in the way at stages of Elizabeth wanting to live her own life because there's no mother around. Her dad, Frank, wants her to babysit a lot, so that's where Patricia plays a role. And Frank, the dad, he clearly understands the positive impact John is having on Elizabeth, because I think he notices she's probably the happiest she's been since her mother passed away, and he holds on to this secret that he knows John and his mates are into crime and they robbed their family home, and he holds this from her for a long time until I think he decides enough's enough. And I think that's kind of a nice thing that sort of is glossed over and done in a nice way in this film. The director, Alexis Almstrom, directed a short film called Mezher. I'm guessing that might have been an ad for the car company. He's done a film called The Pink Cloud Syndrome, this film, and a TV series called Top Dog. I don't know any of them. I think they're all based from Sweden. So there we go, making a little bit of a career in television and film. Let's talk about some scenes. What are some scenes that stood out? What did I like? What didn't work? Things that worked. It's hard in this film. I don't know. It's got a short runtime. It's only 90 minutes, so there's not an awful lot to comment on, but we'll go. So I like the way that John, I don't know, shorthanded it to JJ. John and Sluggo, his mate, the way that they communicated to each other by putting their heads out the windows of their apartments, that they'd yell out down levels between each other, and this sort of highlighted the tightness and the small quarters that they lived in compared to the nice luxurious home that Elizabeth and her family had on the other side of the lake. And talking about water and the lake, I think the idea of water throughout sort of plays a role in this film. John and his mates swimming in this open, free area, like the public land, whereas Elizabeth has this big, expensive, almost infinity pool at her house that she can just relax in peacefully and calmly without the worries of what's actually going on with the overcrowdedness on the other side of the lake. There's this Carl guy who is at Patricia's party, one of Frank's work colleagues, and he sits down and has a chat with John and pretty much highlights that John doesn't come from Elizabeth's world and he may really struggle to fit in. I thought that was a good little conversation. And I really like the teacher at the school, that John and Elizabeth end up at this theatre school together. And I like the idea that even though John had stolen some musical equipment from the school, he mentions that he wasn't going to give up on him and he could still see potential. And this sort of makes Elizabeth realise that she shouldn't give up on him either, because there are true feelings there. So I thought that was all right. Some things that didn't work. John saving Patricia. These are probably just questionable things, but he saves Patricia from drowning, brings her to the shore, and then Frank the dad just walks him and Sluggo back to their house. I mean, I probably wouldn't do that, to be honest. I'd be very thankful and very gracious and probably get contact details. But it was just a convenience for the plot to walk them back to the house so that they could case the house and come back later. So that was a bit weird. The meet cute inside the house, it was a little bit of a look that Elizabeth and John had between each other. That was a little bit lame. And then there was this moment cutting between Elizabeth and John, both in their respective bedrooms, lying in bed on their phones, stalking each other on social media. A little bit lame. Elizabeth's little tantrum when her and John, they get mugged and she gets hit. So I understand she's very upset, but it was a little bit over the top, her sitting in the gutter on the other side of the road away from him because she doesn't want to talk to him. It just felt a little bit forced. And finally, there's a moment where it's absolutely pouring down rain. And John sneaks over to Elizabeth's house and gets through her window, and her comment to him is, "You're wet." Really? Yes, we understand. It's raining. The themes, the ideas, it's trying to say a fair bit. The idea of Stockholm, I don't have a lot of background on the city, but it seems like a split city. There's the immigrant side versus the blonde hair, blue eye, upper class side that have the money, and that idea of class, lower class, upper class, who has the ability to succeed in life based on their upbringing. And young love obviously plays a part. Love the person that you're with because of who they are, not where they come from. Education plays a big part, a big grounding common ground between these two main characters. The idea of once you're in a classroom, everyone is equal. And the idea too that education, staying away from crime, is an important thing because teenagers do dumb things and they can struggle to take advice from anyone unless it's their own idea. Second chances, it plays a role towards the end of this film too, finding the good in people, even if they do make poor choices, and making sure that you don't judge people, and ties into, I guess, with, it doesn't matter who your friends or what your friends think of you or think of your image or what you like or your interests. It's important to follow your dream. And the arts, theatre, they can be expressive and allow people to shine and be who they are. And that idea, this was a line from the film. I like this. Rich people aren't nice. There we go. What else did I take away from this film? I think I've got to highlight this. There's a scene where Elizabeth and John are exchanging phone numbers, and he asks her to take a selfie or a photo so he can save it with her number so he knows which Elizabeth it is in his contacts. And she questions, she's like, "How many Elizabeths do you actually know?" And he says 6, 7. I cringed, and I was like, is this film onto this years in advance? A lot of people, especially if you're surrounded by younger people, would understand this cultural reference of 6, 7 and how it's been playing out over the last 12 months or so. So was this film onto this years in advance? I thought that was very, very cringeworthy, but interesting. Some questions, some pondering, some thoughts, some ideas to finish the show off. The subtitles. There was twice in this film. Obviously, you watch an international film and listen along to the native language. It makes the film a much more enjoyable experience. But there was twice in this film where there was the mention of calling 911 in the subtitles. I understand Netflix is American, but surely they can keep the subtitles relevant to the country of origin. And if you see the number 112, I think it is, the European number for police, fire, ambulance, etc., that it's not that big a deal to understand what it is. You don't need it to have 911. I thought that was interesting. Elizabeth, when she gets angry, she goes out and she lights up a cigarette, and her dad does the same thing. I think that was a very European thing. I did like the idea of their... I think this was during the school moments, the teachers preaching about theatre and theatre doesn't exist without an audience. I love that line because it's very similar to film. Like, a film isn't in its full existence until an audience experiences it and interprets it and critiques it. So I liked that line. I thought that was good. The whole idea of making Elizabeth so bad at performing. She's in this theatre school and she struggles with nerves and the ability to dance, and it just highlighted how bad she was, and the idea she needed John to bring her out of her shell. It was just a little bit too convenient because there is a scene where they're sitting at like a restaurant with all their friends and they're like, "Show us that you can act," and she clearly can act. So I thought that was a little bit over the top. Elizabeth, she just bails on her sister one night. She gets her to sleep at the house. The dad's not home. And then she just goes out. What a naughty girl. I just thought that was a little bit irresponsible. John's mother sings to him. It's a nice, tender little moment. She sings to him, when he's a little bit upset because he's had to end it with Elizabeth. And this happens over and over again in Netflix original international films where there were no English subtitles for the lyrics, and I was a little bit frustrated because I would have loved to have known what she was singing to him. That would have been impactful and tied in a little bit with what was going on. I've got to put it in here, the ending. Like, Elizabeth, she shows up, she follows John. The police, he's got a gun, he's going after this guy that killed Sluggo, and she stops in front of a police car and gets herself arrested so she can get in the car with him, and then they have this kiss in the back of a divvy van. It was a weird ending. Just felt a little bit weird. And my final sort of thoughts, like, in Australia, this has an MA 15 plus rating, meaning it's restricted for people 15 years and over. And I'm a little bit unsure. It said it's for coarse language, but realistically, I don't think the language was that bad in this. I think Netflix have gone a bit over the top with their self-regulated rating for this. I'm not sure this deserved an MA 15 plus rating, because I think this would be enjoyable and impactful for that category, not just 15 plus. They're just my thoughts. I'm ready to wrap this one up. We give the film a rating out of 5 on this show. And I think this is where I'm struggling a little bit. I'm looking back at the film overall. There's probably not an awful lot that stands out while I'm analysing it, but I still enjoyed it. And I enjoyed the experience while watching it and seeing a European story unfold that felt a little bit different and kept me intrigued the whole way. So I'm giving this a 3 out of 5. Solid score for me. We're on socials. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, and we have X, formerly known as Twitter. The question, I struggled to think of a question for this film, but for me, I'm really intrigued. Why did Elizabeth's dad need a gun? This plays a big role in this film, the gun, because at the start, John and his friends steal the gun from her house. The police have a go at Elizabeth's dad, saying you could lose your gun license for not having it locked up, and that gun at the end is used to obviously allow for some revenge thoughts from John towards the killer of Sluggo. But why does he need a gun? Is it for protection? They live in such a nice house, a nice area. Are they used to crime? Do they fear crime? I'm intrigued because I don't think he needs a gun, to be honest. The security system that they had at that house, they've obviously got CCTV, they've got good locks, they've got good doors. I'm intrigued. Why did he need a gun? It just felt, maybe it's just to do with the plot. Anyway, I'm ready to wrap it up. Next week, we have another film from 2021. This one is an action thriller. It's called Kate. It's directed by Cedric Nicholas Troyan and stars Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Miku Marantino, Woody Harrelson, and June Kunimura. There we go. I'm excited. I don't know this film. We'll find out next week. If you're interested in joining next week, give it a watch before then. Other than that, thank you for joining me today, and we'll see you next week.